So today we are in a gorgeous home in West Hollywood, California, up in the hills overlooking the city of Los Angeles. Now this house can be yours for a measly $120,000 per month or $26 million. I think I can dig that out of my couch. That basically falls out of my pocket all the time, so I'll just scoop some quarters together and make my down payment. So this is actually a massive house, only 4 bedrooms though, but pretty much every amenity you could possibly think of, including a spa, giant infinity pool, multiple kitchens, living room, guest suite. The list goes on, and the finish, detail, and quality are just amazing. That being said, it's actually a relatively simple home in terms of design and material palette. And rather than show you just the basics of real estate architecture or interior photography, what I want to focus on today is using a place like this, a bigger house, and actually drilling down a little bit and creating interesting graphic shots. This house has been photographed multiple times before, and so I want to really capture something that hasn't been done before, hasn't been seen, so that the client can look at these and go, damn, he got some fresh angles, and that's going to help with marketing the property, it's going to give the architect something fresh, and it's going to get some new eyeballs on this amazing home. As I walked through and scouted this home, I noticed that it's going to be pretty hard to take a bad photo. No matter where you point the camera, you're going to get something good. But again, that's sort of the easy way out. I want to actually make something interesting, not just a record of the home. Now, if I was normally hired to shoot this house, of course I'd have to get wide angle and tight shots of every room. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to focus on the more interesting, tight images, a little bit of the unexpected, rather than just the typical camera in a corner, wide angle lens, click, 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 click. So as I was walking around scouting this morning, I noticed a shot that I think most people would completely overlook. I'm always keeping my eyes open for shots that are a little bit more than just a photograph or a Xerox of a room. What I've got here is the sun rising on the right-hand side of the image, back east this way, and outside there are these sunshade louver type things, and the sun is coming through and casting these amazing diagonal shadows underneath the stairs. I've also got this long wall of glass, and if you get really close to it, you can actually see reflected in the glass a mirror image of the stairs in those shadows. It's a really graphic, interesting, and different composition that not only shows the stairs, but shows how the sunlight travels through this house at all times of day. So here we are, I've got my camera right here, and I think this composition is going to be relatively simple. I'm going to jam this thing as far into the glass as possible and try to get that glass to reflect the stairs and the shadows right in this composition. It's a super graphic, almost split composition, kind of divided into quarters. It's got this really cool look to it that I absolutely love. Not only is this a picture of a house, it's really a photograph of architecture that shows a bit of intention, and it shows that a lot of thought went into the composition. Even though I got lucky while I'm scouting, I'm always trying to keep my eyes open for interesting moments like this. So because I want to get as close as possible to the glass, I'm gonna lower my tripod leg here and I'm gonna go straight down with it. Okay, so I've got the camera in here. There's really not that many options for composition. The shot is pretty much the shot and it only works in one spot. Like my rhyme? So I've got the camera right next to the glass. I can pick up the reflection, and down the hallway, I see those really cool shadows coming in across the floor diagonally from the louvers on the upper right. Really, really interesting shot here. So I'm gonna get this focused. If I can get the iPad in here. The light looks amazing. I'm gonna focus with live view here on my iPad. And what I also really like about this light is you can see that the lines formed by the shadow not only matches those louvers, but also the handrail, and you got this amazing sort of diagonal, what am I going to call this? This like diagonal cross running through the photo that just pulls your eye right in. Really, really cool stuff. Okay, so I am focused, and let me take a test shot here. Now, I think this looks pretty cool, but it feels a little bit lifeless and gray. There is not too much color, honestly. There's some green outside, and I think this would really benefit from adding a person, a subject of interest, sort of at the top of the stairs. Now, as soon as you put a person into the photo becomes almost all about that person, and your eye immediately goes there. So it's gonna add a little bit of life. It's gonna soften this thing up a little bit because all we have is really gray and black, and it's gonna help, again, pull that eye through and give us a solid subject to focus on. Now, everyone's been making fun of my clothes today, but Funnily enough, I think I'm gonna be a great color to complement the green outside and sort of the gray-green inside. So I'll do this all the time. I will jump in the photo myself to add a little bit of a human subject, or I'll grab my assistant or even my client and I'll say, hey, go stand over there. You'll be in the shot, but you're not gonna really be identifiable or anything like that. I like my people to be far away from the camera so that the subject of the photo remains the architecture, but the human adds a little bit of scale, a little bit of interest. So I'm gonna jump in there and we'll take a few shots and see how I look. So now that the model has been placed in the scene and I'm pretty happy with what we've got, I'm gonna go ahead and bracket, again, 5 shots from my base exposure, which in this case is 1/25 f11 ISO 200, 2 stops up and 2 stops down, and then blend everything together to make the finished shot. So let's take this into post-production and see how it looks. All right, here we are in post-production, our first shot of this beautiful home in the bird streets of West Hollywood, some of the coolest homes in all of Los Angeles. So here's our stair shot, and what I love about this one is the graphic simplicity of it. We have tons of amazing lines here, we got great shadow, we have that beautiful reflection, everything that we saw on location. Let's go ahead and put this together. So I've got our 5 bracketed shots, and I like each of them, sort of for different reasons. I like the high key look. I also sort of like the dark look that focuses on just the blacks, but I don't know what I'm going to, like the blacks and the shadows here are so rich, so deep, really cool. But on the high key side of things, I also like that as well. So I feel like this is a little busy. This is the central exposure here, the middle base exposure. I'm gonna see if I can. Yeah, I sort of like the high key look on that right-hand side. And there's a little adjustment here in the base exposure. But I'm gonna take 2 of these shots and the photo of our lovely figure. I wonder who that is. I look like possessed. Look at my eyes. Oh my god. I love my pose, but my face looks absurd. So I'm gonna grab the other shot of me. I think I look better there. And I'll bring that into the edit. I like where I am in this shot. I like my body. I don't like my face. So I'm gonna give myself a little face replacement, but that's coming in a little bit. So let's do some light edits on these in Lightroom. Again, just gonna recover some highlights, recover some shadows. And I will build my shot upon that. So I'm gonna take these 3, I'm gonna sync them. You know what, I'm gonna sync all 5. There's 2 shots of me and 3 shots that have just the space with no figure in it. And we're gonna edit those as layers in Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. And I'm going to hide my 2 shots of myself while I figure out the rest of this exposure. So I'm just gonna label these dark, medium, bright, as we have done. And I'm gonna start work on this medium exposure. I'm just gonna do some piece-by-piece edits using the luminosity masking techniques that I taught you previously. So I like this dark exposure. We do have some blue sky coming in. I like what we've got out here. This tends to get a little too busy right here, this area. So I might keep that brighter, but let's go one piece at a time here. So I'm gonna grab the blue channel. I'm gonna duplicate it, Command M to add a mask, Command M to add a curves layer. And I'm just looking to take those brightest areas of this dark exposure. I'm gonna feather that edge by 1 pixel. Turn my RGB layers back on. And add a mask. And as you can see, I'm just sort of working in some of that upper right corner. I don't want, it's like it looks a little muddy in the bottom right. I like the brightness. It should be bright down there, but I want to bring in some of those highlights. So I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to paint out some of this area in the bottom right that I don't really feel like we need to get this shot across the finish line. And there's a really nice blend right there. Yeah, that looks really great. So the opacity on this layer is at 80. We brought back the perfect amount of detail almost everywhere. It doesn't look muddy. The whites still look white. It's like a warm white, you know, like from here, it goes from blown out to warm sunlight. That looks really good. This down here is still a little busy. Do I want to brighten it up to simplify? Yeah, like maybe some of these bushes and stuff could benefit from that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to use that brighter exposure on the whole left side of the image. I just split the image in half with a rectangular marquee tool and use that for my mask. And I think that looks really nice. I like that added brightness on the left. I'm still not sold over here, so I'm going to brush in some of the shadows just gently. To taste. See how that looks. All right, and there is our luminosity mask. Very gentle, very mellow. Let's go ahead and add the figure. So like I said, I like this pose, but my face looks absurd. So I'm going to mask in myself on the upper right, upper left here. So I'll just add a black layer mask. And I'm just going to paint myself in with a soft brush. And you can see that because I added that luminosity mask, I'm a bit underexposed. That's fine. I will add a curves layer to brighten that up. But first, let me fix my face. So I'm just going to grab my head, copy it, paste it, hide the rest, and move that over myself and nudge it in there. And then add a mask and brush in and out what is good and what is not. Just to give that like a seamless transition. I might need to move this up a little bit. Ta-da! Okay, so the whole thing, like I noticed a few seconds ago, is dark. So I'm going to group all these together, rename it figure, and add a curves layer. Clip it to that group, and brighten it up until it matches. And there you have me. Looking good. So let's see what we've done so far. I like it. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to clone out some of the more distracting elements that I think are, you know, bugging me a little bit, like these lights up here. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Command-Alt-Shift-E to a new layer and make this easy on myself and just use the Content Aware tool to take out some of these art hangers. Okay, this is looking nice. Now, I know for a fact that Lightroom is going to screw this up when it comes to the verticals and horizontals. And there's a little bit of like a skew or something going on with the stairs. I think that might just be the weight of them. There's a very slight, like the reflection isn't totally straight. So I'm just gonna adjust these verticals here in Photoshop. So I'm gonna bring out my rulers and piece by piece, make sure that everything here lines up. So this is a tricky one because I couldn't get directly against the glass. So it looks a little weird. I might have to sort of skew that this way. What I did there was I just made a selection with the M for the marquee tool, and I just sort of skewed only the bottom to straighten that out. And I'm going to keep working on this layer piece by piece here to make sure that everything is as it should be, nice and straight. I'm using the warp tool. I just want to adjust certain parts of the image, really, because the bottom looks good, but the top looks a little off. And I'll switch back to the skew tool. Get that down. The glass does make it very tricky with the reflections here, but I'm just pushing and pulling, and eventually this will get where it needs to be. What's really kind of funky is the whole right lower half. So I'm going to grab a big chunk of it and just work on skewing this straight. All right, I'm using the warp tool to get those stairs straight on the right in the glass. And that worked better than the skew, because the skew sort of pulled that piece away from the rest. And you had these weird sort of jarring lines there. But that, everything looks pretty straight to me. Unless I need my eyes checked. I'm gonna go ahead and save this back into Lightroom. So a bit of skew, a bit of warp, a bit of push-pull to get that perfect. All right, so here we are back in Lightroom. I definitely think this needs a bit of contrast. I don't think it needs any more shadow detail, but maybe the blacks can come down. It does feel a little bit light in the shadows to me. It needs some texture and clarity for sure. A little vibrance, a little saturation. And you can see what a difference that has all made. Highlights look perfect. Shadows look good. All right, I'm gonna go down. The thing with this image is it's definitely gonna be all about the crop. And right now, it's not the exact crop. It feels a little bottom heavy. So let's try a 4x5. Punch in a little bit. Yeah, that feels really good. Okay, that I'm loving right there. A lot less sort of extraneous information and pure graphic design. I'm gonna go ahead and call that one done. Let's go back on location and get our next shot.